Hello, everyone. It is a Friday evening. For most of us, this automatically transforms into a good evening, isn't it? As we try to inculcate learnings from various industry leaders through our Masterclass series, what makes this even more special is that we actually kickstart our podcast with an all women gang. So we have Paheli, Shoeba, Vishakha, Rajita, and I, Shivangi, as your hosts for today. So looks like our Women's Day celebration have started already, yeah? So here's introducing Namita Saran, the Director of Business Banking, Salesforce and API Engineering, Barclays India. She has over 19 years of experience in field of information technology and has performed diversified roles. She joined Barclays back in 2015 and well, the rest is history as you'll see. She's also a technology enthusiast and is known for efficient ways of working. Namita, I welcome you on behalf of the Executive MBA 4.0. So without further ado, I would request you to share your journey with us.
Sure. Thanks, Shivangi. And thanks for the wonderful welcome and the introduction. Just adding a bit to what Shivangi mentioned, I think pretty much she covered it in a very good, precise manner. I have been with Barclays for almost 7 years, and those 7 years actually seems to me as 14 years already. It has been my best journey so far. I joined in as a AVP, and I was able to move to a director level with all the support which I had in this space. And I think I've always been passionate about technology and making sure that I cover the management aspects as well, besides just technology, because technology helps you get into depth of things and how things happen and the mechanics of how things happen in the background. But then with the management and network, it at least helps you with the growth and the other aspects as well, which is extremely important as you grow in your professional career. So my journey has been quite diverse in terms of the domains I have worked through in my career, working right from product development, server development, working in the insurance domain, banking domain, and the telecom sector and others. And also diverse in terms of the location. So I started my career somewhere in Mumbai. I moved to Pune. Then I moved to US for almost 6, 7 years, and US as well. I had to move to different cities. So almost 4 or 5 times I relocated in US, right from east to the south to the west. So, and then back to India again. But yeah, an interesting journey and a very passionate about engineering, along with a lot of leadership activities, which I get into in my current role. Thanks, Shivangi.
Thank you so much, Namita. So we now have Shoeba, and we've got a quick set of questions to be asked. So over to you, Shoeba.
Thank you, Shivangi. Thank you, Namita, for sharing your journey. It's very enlightening and inspiring. So we have few questions that we'll ask you, and we'll love to have your thoughts on it. So my first question is that in today's industry, how is the acceptance of women leader? Has it changed over the years? And what steps we can take to encourage more women in leadership roles?
Yeah, sure. So I think definitely it has changed from the time I had joined versus where we are at this moment. From past, I would say from past 4 or 5 years, I have been seeing that this has become more prevalent in the sense that everybody is vocal about it in terms of diversity, and we should have more diverse skills. Way back in 2002, when I had joined fresh from college into the industry, nobody even used to speak about it. So it has changed definitely, and it has changed for good. I can see that positive vibes coming in the industry as well, as to where we are at this moment. In terms of how the acceptance is at this moment, I think there is still a long way to go, because there are different unconscious bias and different perceptions which people form in their mind at this moment. uh, and Things which we as females, we know that we can do it, but then people, and not just males, I would say at times the females hiring females as well, they tend to get to that state where they would have that unconscious bias playing in. But now everybody is more vocal and try to make sure that awareness is there. So I definitely feel things have changed from where it was, and in another, I would say it would still take 5 to 7 years at least. So maybe a decade, we could say, where we would see a equal representation, or probably at least, I would say 50% at least. Right now, we are somewhere around 20 to 30%. That's where we are at this moment in the market. But hopefully in another few years, I'm hoping we'll be 50-50% with the males and females as we go ahead. So looking forward to it. And I'm sure it will bring in more and more positive energy in the industry as we move on.
Yeah. So the last part of the question, like what more steps can be taken in, like to encourage more women leaders, right?
So I think we have to focus on getting more role models, and then also look at how do we kind of inspire the next generation to get into this, and also be vocal about what are the challenges we face, and help the next levels to kind of understand how do we solve those challenges, because many a times we are afraid of taking that first step and don't know how things would be. And even in my mentorship programs with females from different levels, right from colleges till the ones in the corporate industry, I think that first step is extremely important, and learning from the role models, reading a bit more about how people handle in the females gender as to how we should adjust with the things, that becomes very important. So I would say taking that as an inspiration, and also knowledge. I think knowledge and networking is key to everything. So make sure we get into depth of knowledge and at the same time the breadth of networking, because these two things play an extremely big role besides understanding that challenge of taking the first step.
Yeah, totally agree with you. We need more role models like you so that we can have more women leaders. So my second question is that in your opinion, which are the key skill sets that we as future managers or entrepreneurs should have so that we have a standing ground in the future?
So me being part of the IT industry, right? Probably I'll give you skills from IT industry. It might be a bit biased. So from an IT industry per se, I think skills, a few of the important ones is definitely data analytics, machine learning, AI, because a lot of things is moving towards automation and prediction as we move ahead. Second would be full stack development in terms of how things can be developed. And then nobody wants to settle down with a single skill you have at this moment. So how fungible you are in terms of having more technology skills, as well as roles where you could play multiple roles rather than playing one single role. And a couple of others in the tech skills, but I'll not say too many of them because it would confuse you. In terms of soft skills, I would say making sure that we are having that critical thinking, the cognitive flexibility, problem solving skills, so that besides the technical knowledge you have on the subject, you also have the soft skills, which will make you more sellable in whichever role you play. It's not always that you have the knowledge on the topic which you work upon, but then it's also the attitude which plays an extremely, extremely important role, because that's the first thing which we assess when we are taking any candidate. If you have the attitude, I think rest of the things falls in place automatically.
Yeah, very well said. The right attitude is the key, right?
Yeah.
So thank you so much for answering these questions. So over to Rajata to take it forward.
Thank you, Shoaib, and thank you, Namita. The response was absolutely interesting. So my question is that, what was the most challenging decision or the situation you faced in your professional life? How you made it through, and what was at stake?
So that's an interesting question and very close to my heart. So I think way back sometime in 2014, when my US visa had expired, I had come back to India and joined back Capgemini in India. And I spent almost 6 months here in India. But then that whatever role profile I was playing here in India in Capgemini, I was really not satisfied. And I also had my husband staying in US, and I had moved into India with my daughter. It was a very stressful moment. So it was a tough decision for me. But then I took that stand to quit my job and move back with my husband in US. Almost 4 to 5 months I was out of job. And it was a very pioneering moment for me, because being out of job was never I had imagined in my life, and a very tough decision to take at the first place itself, right? Emotionally, professionally, it was a very bold step which I took. But I'm extremely happy that I took that step, because that made me land into Barclays. And that has been my best journey so far. Probably if I had not taken that step, I would have continued where I was. and I would not have seen the better side of the story, right, which could have ended up in my life. So I think at times it's good that happens with the worst which we see at the sense of the moment, but then the way we kind of get through that journey and the outcome of it, right, it makes a huge difference. I did feel at that time that I'm losing a key part of my career, but then I think it was all worth it, so I'm really happy about it now.
I think many women, including me, can relate to it, Namita. Thank you. And one more question. So, in your opinion, what are the factors that impact the inclusiveness of women in leadership roles, especially in the corporate world? Are these factors likely to change in the near future and make the environment conducive for women to prevail?
uh, Again, a bit influenced by my earlier answer as well, I think people tend to make opinions for women on their own behalf rather than understanding what the women can do. So I think that's one of the most inhibiting factor. I've gone through scenarios where people would ask as part of the interview as to how many kids you have, can you work extra hours, can you do this, are you going to go on maternity leave? So all those kind of questions which keeps coming in as doubt for women as to whether they would be able to stretch and get to where the organization wants them to. But I think people have to be cognitive about the fact that that's a decision which the candidate can make for themselves rather than asking those questions. Males are no different. They have also the same responsibility as the women have. And I think that's one of the biggest factor which impacts the inclusiveness of women. Besides, at times they feel that people cannot play, like women cannot play technical roles. I've seen that in the current organization as well, with people having that kind of a mindset. Not all, but there's some sets which would have that women are good in managerial skills, but probably if they're talking about engineering and technical skills, it's more the brain is somewhere else and you could just execute things, which is not the case absolutely at this moment. Me being head of engineering as well at this moment, so I'm extremely proud of that at this moment. And I think things are changing, but that unconscious bias always plays, and that's where women are lagging behind. And one last thing on that would be, I think women themselves holding themselves back and not make taking that first step of asking for more. I think that's extremely important. Whether or not I get that more is a separate story, but making sure that I'm asking and making the person in front of me aware that that's where my head is the first step, because then you set your expectations right. If you get it, it's good. If not, then you have your aspirations set, right? So you take that step is extremely important. So that inclusiveness will only come when we ask for it, right? It's not just automatically things will start flowing our way.
Well said, Namita. Totally agree with you. And over to you, Vishaka.
Thanks, Rajita. Thank you, Namita, for enlightening us with your knowledge and experience. I have a question for you. How is the standpoint of women in technology or corporate transitioned in the last decade?
So standpoint of women in the technology, right? I think we all have come a long way. And I wouldn't say that it's not without the support of the male colleagues, because they have been a big supporter in that journey as well. Because, and that's where we are talking so much about the diversity, and people have started acknowledging the value which we as women bring in the industry, whether it's technology, looking at the meticulous planning aspects, the details which we get to, the sincerity and the hard work which we get to, and getting to the point and making things happen versus just talking about it. So I think things have changed over a period of time. And if we will see as well, not just in technology, right, even in schools, we would see that the girls are excelling what the boys are, and that shows so much of sincerity. And I think that eagerness as well is there in the women at this moment, right, to make sure that they are having something of their own and they are proving their point that they can do better. So things have changed a lot in the last decade, and I would say the male are also supporting quite a bit. And in my case as well, I would say I have always had a supportive husband and a supportive family who would always back me up to take whatever challenge I want to take in my life, because I have been a super ambitious person in my life, but nobody has pulled me back at any point in time. They would have backed me up rather than pulling me back. So I think it's more to come in the future years, I would say.
I totally agree with you, Namita. Another question. What more changes can we expect in upcoming decades, like technology-wise? And so what changes are we expecting? Yeah.
So when you say what changes, it's more in terms of the environmental or the support kind of thing which you are asking as to what changes we can expect in the near decade, right? So I think in terms of the changes, right, there are a lot of programs which are running at this moment across the organizations, where they would welcome females coming from maternity leaves, long career breaks, early careers for the females from the underprivileged community, making going to the colleges and making the females aware of what opportunities are there, even in schools, making the girls aware of what career opportunities which are there. So I see a lot of those programs happening at this moment, where not about only the current I would say the current folks who are already in the professional career, but also the next generation which is going to get into the career. There are a lot of programs which are focusing on that, so that we have a good pipeline of girls and females coming into the industry. So those are a few things I think will really make a big change with the support of the environment which we have at this moment.
I totally agree, Namita. Now over to you, Paheli.
Thank you, Vishakha. And Namita, it has been an amazing time listening to you. I mean, so many things we can relate to on personal level, and so many things which we can apply in the upcoming days. Thank you so much. So we were talking about change, right? So everything changes technically, environmentally. The only thing that remains constant is crisis, right? Some or the other crisis keeps coming. So what would you say? How can we convert a crisis into an opportunity?
Yeah, so it many times happen in our professional career and as well as in personal life as well, right? I think the mantra which I follow is, the first thing is, when you're into a crisis, you have to take a minute off everything and tell yourself you have to stay calm, focus, and just take deep breaths, because that is the first thing which gives you energy to pump in and think better. Otherwise, in crisis, we are like all over the place as to what to do, what next, what can go wrong, and all of those bad thoughts start coming in, right? And once we have gathered all that energy with full mindfulness, we should also think of what is the worst case which could happen in that crisis, so that we are mentally prepared that that is where we could hit, and then build a plan in terms of what should be my focus, who are the key people who would impact and help me get through the crisis, and keep that focus through, so that we are constantly moving in the forward direction and having that mindfulness to make a positive move towards it, right? Because in the software industry, we always say that with fire comes the glory. So when we are in the crisis, we should consider that that's where my growth lies. And I have been, and Shivangi, you can probably vouch for it, I have been in fire situations constantly, and that has become my personality in Barclays, to fix on fires and then move on to the next fire to fix upon. So a crisis is the best opportunity, I would say. It's just the way we look at it.
Right. I completely agree. Being from a software development background myself, we are always on fire, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. So Namita, now I'll ask you some fun questions. It's sort of a rapid fire, and I'll shoot one questions after another. Okay.
Sure.
So
I hope there's no time limit, right?
No, nothing. You can take your time. Yeah. So first question, Namita, what does your typical work day look like?
It's extremely poor at this moment. That is something which I'm working upon, and hopefully I will be able to make some improvements in this year. So my mornings are extremely busy with my personal life. I try to do exercises, and for me, it's everything is quick, because I feel time is the key. And the moment I'm spending too much of time on one thing, I feel I'm losing time. So generally, 20-25 minutes of Zumba in the morning, listening to some learning things in parallel and then doing the home course just to make sure that the things are set for the day and I don't have to feel troubled during the day to look at it. The day goes on with the work right from 10 a.m. in the morning, and it goes on till at least till 7 in the evening, and at times it goes till 8:39 as well, and it's constantly like it's on and off, and that's where I'm trying to improve, because I know, miss, at some point in time we should just switch off and forget about it no matter what happens, but I have not been excellent at it. On days I am, like today is the day when I just switched off at 5 and I said whatever goes wrong, it goes wrong. But yeah, it's a journey. It's not easy, but weekends are the time where I don't touch work at all. I spend my full time with my family. I have a 10-year-old daughter, so I spend most of my time with her and with my husband and my parents, playing around, and whatever I have not done in my life earlier, I make sure I do it with her to get an experience of it.
We all are trying hard to strike that perfect work-life balance, actually.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So my next question, Namita, which are the 3 most apt words to describe yourself you would want to use?
Most apt words, I would say ambitious, emotional, and extremely responsible.
Nice, Namita. Next question is, when you're not working, as you said earlier that you try to spend most of the time with your kid, but what are the activities that you enjoy the most in your leisure time?
So I like cycling, playing badminton, going on long walks where I'm just alone by myself. I prefer going on long walks alone rather than with somebody at times, just so that I am myself and walk through the nature, because it gives you a lot of thinking time as well when you get there. And recently during the COVID times, I have got into a lot of audible listening, so which has enlightened me quite a bit and changed the way I am to become a better person in my personal life as well, because I'm extremely workaholic. So it helps me move away from work and focus on my personal life, as well as keeping the calmness in my life.
Some interesting activities there, which we should also try, honestly, some of them. So you have so many people reporting to you, right, Namita? So what does your nightmare employee look like?
The nightmare employee, I would say the people who are extremely demanding and not having that enough potential. That becomes quite challenging to make people understand where they lack, because if people are listening and trying to understand the critical feedback, it becomes easier. But then when a person is not having the potential, but they would want to demand for more and not understand the ask, I think that becomes the most energy drainer, because it all goes onto the deaf ears, and it becomes more like a high maintenance employee, I would say, just to kind of convince and spend that energy, right? Because it's not helping either the employee or yourself. It's more of a lose-lose situation, because only then you can fix it. So I think that's the most difficult one to handle.
Got it. And earlier you said that we should have more role models, right? So who is yours?
There's not a single one. I would say it's all a mix of different personalities. So, and that's where a lot of books which I read, right? It helps me. And earlier in my career, I never used to do that much of reading. So throughout my career, I have been looking at the females who have been in the different positions in the organization, right? So it has been across. Recently, I've been reading on Indra Nooyi. Earlier, I read on Facebook CEO Sandberg. I forgot the exact name, but yeah, Sheryl Sandberg. So that was one of the role models, I would say. But then I pick and choose from different role models. I don't have one fixed ones which I go with.
Right. I think all of us sort of have multiple role models, right? Somebody inspires us personally, somebody professionally. So yeah.
And there are very small things which inspires people, right? So I really love, like, even while talking to you, right? If I get something which I feel, so it really motivates you, and then you try to sample it and see if that works for you. So, but yeah, it works out really wonders, actually.
True. Inspiration comes from anywhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
So my next question is, Namita, as you said before, that parenthood or motherhood in specific is still considered to be a barrier for career for many women. So, what is your advice to women out there who are trying their best to juggle between work and their kids and their work life? What do you want to tell to them?
I would say always go for it. That is the best thing that can happen to a female in their lives. Um, and until and unless you experience it, you don't feel it, right? It seems like you will lose on your career when you take a maternity leave or you take that break. But it's all in the mind. It nullifies over a very small period of time, and rather you end up in getting something better as you move on. So I would say to all the females who are in that journey, right, you have to experience it, because I see a lot of those questions keep coming to me from my mentors as well, that would I slow down on my journey, what would happen and all. Life is too small, right? So experience every bit of it, and it does not make a difference in your decades of career, right? Always experience it is what I would say.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Namita. And my last question to you, last but not the least, you said you are very ambitious, right? And we all are, all of the students are pursuing this because we are doing our jobs and higher studies. So what would you want to say to us? Any words of wisdom, where our higher study will come into play? The effort we are taking, how is it going to pay us off? Any advice on that?
So I would say keep your eyes always open, whether it's a boring lecture or an interesting lecture, because behind everything there is something. Make sure you're forming your networks very well, because that's what pays off in the long run. Even like somebody you have forgotten 20 years ago, you never know. You kind of need that network at any point in time. So networking is extremely important. Go with your eyes open always, with wherever you are, rather than switching yourself off in those scenarios, and get into depth of what you are learning, because knowledge is the key. If you have the knowledge, things automatically turn out to you. It may take time, but then it's always important to get that knowledge, and not just the depth. I would say breadth is equally important. So having an overview of what's there in the industry, what's trending, and what's you're talking or learning about, that's equally important horizontally in terms of breadth, as well as wherever is your specialization, right? You take that depth, and please spend some time reading through some role models or whatever inspires you, right? At least 15 to 30 minutes, I would definitely suggest that in the day, outside your regular studies or work or whatsoever, because at least for my personal journey, I've seen that it has really made a difference for me to think differently and stay cool and calm. So that would be my suggestion to you all.
Thank you so much, Namita. I think everything you said was extremely relatable, and I had a lot of fun interacting with you. So back to you,
Same here.
Shivangi. Thank you.
So, Namita, while we have you here, I have another question on behalf of all of us. Actually, it's more like a collective question. We're very curious to know that you mentioned that you started off your journey as an AVPs, and I'm sure you would have worked across various stacks of technology. So, how easy or difficult was it to switch from one stack to the other? Because we can see that you worked across APIs and BDN platforms and Salesforce. So, how is that we as women, not just women as such, the students make themselves more flexible to kind of imbibe the technology?
Yeah, so it's difficult, I would say, because the moment you are in your comfort zone, you again get into your uncomfort zone, right? Because you master something and by that time you are onto something different. But then staying focused and trying to understand what is important in that space, instead of getting into the depth of each and everything, right? You need to understand what is important in each of the space, and where the opportunity lies to make that thing grow, rather than looking at everything. Because many times what happens is things are always huge, right? And that's where you are there to solve that problem. Otherwise anybody else could have solved that problem, but then you should have a eagle's eye to understand that which are the areas where you would be able to convert that into opportunity, not just for yourself but for the organization. It should make sense, and then use the right support system to kind of make those things happen. And those things will not happen automatically. Trust me, I have seen that. And that was the first thing I learned in Barclays. When I asked how to make that app happen, the answer which I got was, who has stopped you? And that was my key mantra from there on. If nobody has stopped you, you can go your way and make that way. And if somebody says that that is not the right thing to do, you will be pushed back, which is okay, right? At least I tried. So keeping that as your mantra, and then keeping yourself focused rather than getting lost in the breadth of whatever you're doing, right? It's extremely important. And that's where your problem solving, critical thinking, all of those aspects plays a key role. It's not just your tech, right? Tech is something which you can learn easily, but then the way you try to get through that journey and the way of maturity which you show in that journey, that gets observed, and people understand how much of a capability you have to solve a particular challenge, right? So that is extremely important. So I think those few things automatically makes you move from one thing to the other and learn new things as well. And also your passion, right? Whether you want to learn new technology, since I have always been keen on new technology, so I moved from content management to API kind of a platform. I did machine learning, artificial intelligence in between, and now I'm onto Salesforce and others. So I'm always keen on getting onto something which has a strong technology plus some leadership and management, which could give me the growth path as well.
Thank you so much, Namita, for an inspiring and enriching session. We are indeed grateful to have you here. And as students, we will definitely look forward to applying these learnings into our daily lives. I would also like to end this session by saying a big thanks to you and the team for being a part of our first Masterclass podcast. Thank you, everyone, and have a very good evening ahead. Thank
I had
so
an
much.
excellent time. Thank you so much,
Thank you so
girls,
much.
and you have a good rest of the evening.
Thank
Take
Thank you,
care.
Namita. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye.
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 Bye.